Talk Tuesday. Not Taco Tuesday. Well, it can be if you want tacos. But in any case, we're going to talk about this particular bike here, the Le Mans Versailles, and the creation of it and why it's kind of a cool bike in my opinion. But chime out if you disagree, which is fine. Everybody has their own opinion. But we're going to be talking about some particular features on this on the used market and how it compares to, I would say, today's standards in a sense. And that's pretty much my little niche. If you know me or watched any of my stuff, you understand that I do a lot in refurbishing bikes and parts to basically upcycle in a sense to make sure they get out there and back on the road and enjoyable. But for us in the cycling communities, as a mechanic for over 35 years of working on bikes and being in various roles of bike shops, this particular bike and a lot of used ones are still very relevant today, especially for the recreational riders, which is what the other 80–90% of us that just want to go out and have a good time, versus the high elite race aerodynamic stuff that, yeah, you may be able to afford that, but do you really need that kind of thing? So I'll be looking over here to my right where the actual chat, I can actually read it and respond to questions that you may have. But in any case, while we're waiting for people to join into the chat, we're going to talk about the Versailles. This particular one, I believe, is a 2007-ish or 8-ish. And let me put my coffee down here and let's talk about this. It's very interesting. These bikes are very interesting because you got a carbon top and a steel bottom. And why would they do that? Well, let's dive into a little bit of history of where I got this. Start there. Found it on Facebook Marketplace. I've been pinging back and forth with the owner of it, its original owner, for several months now, I think. Misconnection, that kind of thing, but he was able to hold on to it for me, which was awesome, and able to meet me at a time I was able to. This is down in Denver, so it's a good hour and a half drive for me to get down there. So in any case, for time purposes, it took me a while to get to it. But in any case, original owner, it's actually his wife's bike. I didn't actually meet the wife, but his wife's bike, and they actually bought it in Michigan. Well, we had a short stint in Michigan for 2 years. I worked at Wheels in Motion in Ann Arbor, Michigan, which is a great shop. So if you're in that area, neck of the woods, check them out. The Dwight family, or the Plotner family, Dwight's the dad, they've been in business for a long time, but that's not where this bike came from. This came from American Cyclery, or American Cycle and Fitness, is a chain location in the Detroit metro area. So they're a big Trek dealer, which there alludes the history portion of this, of the bike, not necessarily the actual history of this specific bike. We'll go over some little details on that. And if you got or listened to my podcast, As the Wheel Turns, So the Days Are Rides, we will be talking about Canyon and REI's kind of partnership, which is, well, it was released about a month ago in the Bicycle Retailer. I'll have a link below on that. But there's some interesting extra bits that I found out in lieu of actually shooting that. And then today I actually popped into REI to get some a little more insights on their partnership at the ground level, where a mechanic talks to a mechanic. But in any case, back to the Versailles, and we'll talk about that, I would say about 30 minutes. I'm not going to bore you too much about this bike unless you start Q&A me about it or anything else. We'll go into that too. But going into back to the history of this bike, or Le Mans itself, that takes a little bit of a story. Le Mans, if you don't know, Le Mans is Greg LeMond. He was the first American to win the Tour de France back in the late 80s, yeah, something like that. And he was pretty popular back then, obviously, because for the longest time, Americans didn't place their podium in the European market race circuit very well until he basically broke the ceiling on that for us to get into that market, or not market, but in that race series, that kind of thing. Well, in any case, he built himself up a name, and then Trek was in a position in the 90s, buying a whole bunch of companies like Greg LeMond, Gary Fisher, Gary Klein, or Greg's and Gary's. There's a lot. I mean, I may have stuttered there a little bit on that, but there was quite a few acquisitions, as well as Rolf Wheels and Bontrager as well. And they shifted the shuffle, the brands in particular, different stores to kind of manipulate the market in the sense where you had a Trek dealer and down the road you'd have a Gary Fisher Le Mans dealer. That's kind of how the pairing went. They're trying to pull money out of all the companies. That's the big bad Trek store story there. But in any case, it did insurge money into the line, and Greg had his own geometries, and he was a steel guy. They had some titaniums built back in the day, not through Trek, but from another company, I'm sure is white labeled. But it actually brought out. I like Le Mans because I got a couple of them myself. Their partnership lasted for about, I would say about 12, 14 years, somewhere around there. I have to look at the dates. They had a big old blowout back in 2007. Something about Lance Armstrong. I'm not really sure what that is. I'm sure you know what that is. In any case, Trek dropped the line immediately. But right about before that, one of the bikes I'm riding, which is a carbon Bornese, that was actually built overseas. A lot of these were built in the United States. Until 2006, 2007, Trek realized carbon manufacturing was a lot more superior in the Taiwan facility. I believe it was either Giant or Merida, one of the major manufacturers back there, was building these bikes up, and they were doing so much better in carbon than they were doing here in the States, and for them to catch up would be too much of a lift. So basically they shifted, and also other very reasons too. That's just the carbon point that I've seen or learned from one of the engineers. But turns out that the whole bike line got pushed over there. So including Le Mans for the last like 1 or 2 years before they got axed. That being said, this particular one, it doesn't have the made in USA on the chainstay. So that's a pretty bit of indicator right there that it wasn't built here, it was built overseas. Also, they use the True Temper OX tubing on the overseas ones. The ones that are built in the United States, I believe, is a Reynolds. So those are kind of a quick eye identifier of looking at the tags on the bike. So there lies the thing like, oh, it's a Le Mans, it was built in the United States. Well, this one wasn't. And one of the two wasn't that I ride. Not to say that's a deficit by any means, due to the fact that they build really good bikes still yet today. And it's one of those situations where it's I don't know, it's one of those things, it's all moved over here. They're starting to try to put more manufacturing back in the United States, but it's just what it is. And the thing is, all the manufacturers make is the frame, sometimes the fork, and sometimes some of the parts. The rest of it is all Taiwanese built or Japanese built componentry. If you get the campy stuff, it's made over in Italy. So all the other various bits like C-post seats, bars, all that stuff is actually made in Taiwan too. So when you look at all those kinds of things as a hodgepodge of a bike, really they all are, they're just kind of specced hodgepodge together, and there eludes the, made in the United States. Sometimes they say assembled in the United States, which there is a company, it's in Colorado in Carbondale. Oh, what's the name? Leverage, oh, I'll figure it out. But they're making gravel bikes and mountain bikes. And Carbondale is a small, remote little town. I was like, a really weird place to have a little assembly. I don't believe they actually build a lot of the bikes there, as in the frames, but they do the assembling process. It's pretty common on those smaller niche brands. And why I say that, because Le Mans was considered kind of a small niche line of Trek, even though it was under the big Trek umbrella. Le Mans is back. They are making bikes again, mostly e-bikes, electric assist, mostly carbon, really expensive, nice stuff. They just released more of their road gravel models, so they are expanding on that. And where they're located is really close to a carbon manufacturer or space age place. So therefore they're actually still producing, and he's actually, if you go to lemans.com, I think, or I don't think it's Le Mans Bikes because that was the Trek thing, but I think it's just lemans.com or something like that. You can check them out there, and you can see the newer ones. So there is a gap from like 2007 to about 4 years ago when Le Mans started building bikes again. So, and there's a few exercise pieces out there, but I think that was some contractor just using their name or his name. So back to this bike. So this is the last leg of the Trek ownership Le Mans, and they were using it's stamped here on the bottom, OCLV, Optimum Compact Low Void. What that means is it's just a fancier carbon that they were using at the time, and it is bonded. So you'll see the bonding creases here. So they were fitted together like lugs and glued into the actual steel portion and the steel portion below. Actually pretty cool. I mean, there's a lot of Kool-Aid on this, like, oh, the feel of steel, but the lightness of carbon, and it's kind of like you're compromised to titanium, that kind of thing. But in any case, that's just kind of the funny bit of it. And well, I remember when these came out, I was working at REI Cyclery and they're brand new, and I thought they were really cool. This clear coat has a sparkle to it, if you like sparkles. So in the sun, it has a good sparkle with the actual traditional carbon weave, so it has a lot of the classic look. So the classic style, external cables, the sleek look. I like it. As an individual, you can work on this without any major headaches like internal routing and so forth, or special proprietary parts, if I said that right, because it all has standard parts like a 68mm shell, 1/8" headset, normal drops in the back, nothing really funky there. You got your old school caliper brakes, which is unfortunately they're called old school because, they work well. Unless you want really wide tires, then you need to go with a disc. And also, this is a 10-speed, so yeah, it is a 10-speed. Hesitated there for a second. It has the 105 up front, Ultegra rear. That's been a kind of a bait and switch kind of thing. Even started in the 90s where they'd put lower componentry on the rest of it and upgrade the rear derailleur to make you assume when you look down the sales floor and you'd see that rear derailleur and like, oh, it's all Ultegra. It's 105. The difference between 105 and Ultegra is pretty minute between the difference. And you probably notice it has a Bontrager crank, which is either FSA or one of those white labeling brands. They made them. It's still it's a one axle kind of Bontrager with external bearings. If you really wanted to swap that out to either a triple or a different double, like a Shimano one, you can do that. And you can probably find some Shimano ones out there pretty easily. I got a question here. Was Le Mans racing Natty? Natty. Well, I'm not sure what you're saying about Natty, but in any case, he was pretty popular. Let's put it that way. And I do have a little side story on that because I have a former racer that's a customer of mine here in Fort Collins, Colorado. And he raced during the same time that Le Mans was. And he was telling me a story where his little bungalow in Europe was like way further away from the start where Le Mans was pretty popular at that time. So he'd have his like group and groupies and his team and all that. So it was kind of like the superstar crowd versus the other racers. So he was kind of in envy and awe of Le Mans at the same time, like, one day I want to be there too. So that's kind of a cool story. And also, if you watched any of my videos with John Bradley was in production or worked as a production manager or product manager at Trek during the 90s, which he actually met Le Mans himself, and he's apparently quite a jokester, so he likes to pull pranks and stuff like that, so it's kind of fun. But just to think that the range that he's racing in the 80s and still, what, four decades later, is over almost in 5 decades later, is still a name that a lot of cyclists will know or at least heard of, that kind of thing. And that's, part of that was the big push of Trek. You can't knock Trek too much because they really did carry the name out. And that's when Lance Armstrong became really big in the late 90s, and that actually put a huge push on all road riding from every brand benefited from those successes. So the marketing on that was huge because that's when the mountain biking was kind of declining, and the state of the bike industry was kind of softening. Sounds kind of familiar. Softening market. We'll talk about that in a bit too. We got a couple insights on that kind of craziness of the industry. But hopefully my sound was a little better. Just want to do a little side note on that because I did some adjustments to my mic settings. I usually do it when I do my pre-record and adjust it in the editing software, but doing the live, it's kind of dumb. So if my sound's okay and not too echoey, give me a thumbs up or chime in the comments like, hey, you can do better. Because I'm always room for improvement and try to do better. And hopefully the lighting's okay. Can't open the garage today to get the natural light coming in due to the fact that it's cold. It's just cold out there today. If it was yesterday, I would have been able to bear it. I do have a south-facing garage, which is a benefit for me in the States. If I was in New Zealand or in Australia, that would be really cold. But being in Colorado, being south-facing, the sun comes in and warms me up in the wintertime to work on bikes. So actually my garage is actually not too bad in the wintertime, only when it gets into negative temperatures, Fahrenheit, negative temperatures. But going back to the Le Mans, and they were using OCLV. He was known for steel. Steel is real. It's like the inexpensive individual person's budget bike in the sense. These were going for probably 1,400 back in the day. But yeah, I picked this one up, sub 3. So when you're looking at that, it's the degradation over almost 20 years. But here's I'm going to talk about the value of the used bike here for a second. I'm going to take a sip of Joe coffee. So when you're looking at the newer version of bikes, and you're looking at it as a mechanic's perspective, as a good mechanic's perspective is a pretty good perspective because we're the ones who are working on it, right? And need to be trained and all that. When you're looking at this particular bike, it is a 10-speed, so you got a double, you got 20 gears. So if you want to do a triple, you got to throw a triple crank on there. It's designed for that, and you can probably find, I was just looking at it today because I'm posting one. So you can get like a front derailleur for something like 30 bucks, 40 bucks. It needs to be specifically triple. Some of these shifters, on the older ones, they do 2 or 3 on the shifter, so you won't have to replace that. But if you do, you just get the left shifter. That might be a little more expensive because the used market on triples, or people have found out that they don't make them anymore. Therefore, to get that vintage level quality, that's where you're going to get a little bit of cost. So let's say that's like 100 bucks. You get it for a shifter, front derailleur, that's 30, crank set, another 100. So you're at 230 now. And you do need to get a derailleur that has a longer cage. Therefore, about 40 bucks. Or no, those are going to expensive because triples are disappearing. Those are going to be another 100. So about 300 and some used. Crazy, right? That's more the Ultegra level componentry, what I just recently looked at this morning. You can probably find some deals out there or what have you, or bid on eBay and that kind of thing to convert this to a triple. Keep in mind, if you do a triple, you'll need a new chain because you need a longer chain to accommodate that. It's probably good to start off that way anyway. In addition to, a triple cassettes are usually a little bit wider range than the double to give you that extra lowering gearing. Here's the thing. If you go wider from like a 10 speed from a low to high, and if you increase the teeth size on that, you're going to have a less smooth transition from shifting. It's okay. But the thing is when you're on pavement mostly or dirt roads, it might be hard to find that one gear that's perfect while riding. That's why you see those on road bikes more of a compact gearing. But when you're looking for a triple, and if like we're in Colorado where we have mountains and you got to do some climbing, you're going to utilize that small ring, and you don't want to jump in that small ring too often, so you want to have a little bit wider range in the back. You can get up to like a 28 with a long cage on the back, somewhere around there. If you want to get really creative and a little bit less expensive, you can do what they're following the current standards of doing a double up front and or one by. You can get a wider mountain range, a 10 speed that goes up to like a 30 or 34 or 32 or 34, right? And then do a long cage derailleur and then use a Wolf Tooth is the brand. It has a derailleur extender. What that does is pushes the derailleur down just about an inch so it accommodates that range in the back. Or you can just switch it to a mountain derailleur, which will have a different pivot to it to accommodate that wider range. So there's a couple less expensive ways to get that lower range. But if you want your traditionalist look, like Ultegra, match the Ultegra and get an Ultegra triple crank set, and then do all the other bits, it's going to cost you a little bit more. One way is going to cost you probably, 100, 150 bucks. The other way, used parts, and then the other way with doing a lot more bits and switching out, it's going to push you up to more of a 300. All depends that if you want to invest that much into that bike. If you do a lot of riding, that could be, it could be a fine investment for you where you want to get into. But in any case, so that's what you can do with the drivetrain. And what I'm trying to allude at here is this bike, as it stands, maybe a little bit wider, gear range in the back, even if that, I don't know if that's a 28, it looks like a 25, but even with that, compared to new on the floor, when you walk into a Trek Specialized or a Giant dealer or whatever, Cannondale, what you're gonna see is this bike with carbon, you won't see the spine design, but if let's just say, even with steel, let's just say with like a nice steel frame, like a Soma or a Surly, a custom, or you can do like a Jameis or something like that. Even then, they're going to cost you somewhere between, with 105, let's knock that down, 105 componentry, you're going to be looking at somewhere around 14 to $2,000. Just to say, I picked this up, less than 300. Even if I put in another 300, I'm still shy of the actual price of new. And how is it going to perform? Pretty damn close. And how you're going to enjoy riding, if you're recreational riding, just as much. In addition to, if you're working on your own bike and you want to do a cable replacement or a chain or any of that kind of stuff, or the fork headset here, you're going to be able to do it yourself, looking at a couple of videos of mine or others on the internet. Park Tools has a great video library to do some of those things, and therefore it cuts that cost down. With all those internal routings, what goes in the fork and all that kind of stuff, and bleeding the brakes, you're going to need a lot of specialty tools. Not saying you can't do it, you can. It's just going to take a lot of time, a lot of extra training to do so, and then you mess up and then you're going to be taken to the bike shop. So therefore, it can be kind of weird and crazy on that. So traditional frame, where a lot of specialty frame companies like the titaniums and so forth, I'm getting bumped by the bars, are going to the external cablings, or like kind of shied away from that just for the traditionalist and the sleek look of, the carbon, or the frame itself, more traditional frame. Honestly, swear, the 95% of us that ride avid and maybe moderate race, the new bikes of today are not necessary at all, for the most part, for especially road. And if you get in a gravel, you get yourself a cyclocross bike. Therefore, you're getting a lot of the same principles. And the case point, I have one behind me that just got powder coated. That's actually which I'm working on today. Was going to work on this, but I got delayed. But that one's it was a used pickup, Facebook fine, Marketplace fine, or Craigslist fine. And I don't think they paid more than 200 bucks for it. They had the frame powder coated because they didn't like the color of it. But it's a Raleigh gravel bike, aluminum frame, carbon fork. Is that right? Yeah. Oh, no, that was aluminum. No, that was a carbon fork on that one. I did look it up. And honestly, as much as she's going to put into it, it's going to be about $500-600, if that. You look for your gravel bike prices nowadays for something similar for that. It's going to be way more brand new, even though the prices have gone down. We'll talk about that too on a lot coming up. Black Friday, it's like almost been Black Friday sale. Promotion's been going all month, so it's only like the month is now is the whole Black Friday push. But we'll talk about that in a minute here. But in any case, so therefore, we're looking at this pretty cool OX tubing, platinum, true temper, and that with the OCLV combination. It does have the American Cycles on there, 105 componentry, and you got your typical brake bosses or bottle mounts on there. Carbon fork, paint to match. And this is actually in really good conditions. There's a couple scuffs. When I do the detailing on it, that's really going to bring out this paint job. That beige color is going to be just really, really beautiful. And the componentry doesn't look like it's been used all that bad. Reason being is this particular bike was not ridden that much. It was ridden a little bit at the beginning, in Michigan. But when they moved here, they got into gravel and mountain biking. So this he said, is like been hanging here for like 10 plus years, not being touched. So there alludes the time to find it a new, beautiful new home. So therefore, it's been handed over to me to do such. One thing to watch out for these with any of the trek bikes with the Bontrager paired spoke wheels, you'll need to look at the drive side spoke, which is the ones with the gears, and the spoke that goes towards this. It has, by the nipple area, I know I said nipple, but that's what they're called, eyelet of the rim, you'll start seeing hairline cracks. So it's pretty common on these. What happened was they milled the rims too thin with the high tension spokes, which is based off of the Rolf wheels. Actually, I have a Rolf wheel here. I'll do a little show and tell. The Rolf wheels, this is where the paired spoke systems came out. It was a great thing or a nightmare, depending on your opinion on it. Here's the Rolf wheel. This is a newer one. The Rolf basically branched away from Trek, the copyright stuck with Trek, so that's where they went to the Bontrager naming on it. But Rolf is still, I believe, still making wheels today. Even may not be the paired spoke, but when Rolf was making these, or when he was part of the Trek, the rims were beefier, so he didn't have that cracks. But when fast forward into the early 2000s or late 90s, when Bontrager, I mean, it was not Bontrager himself specifically, it was just the Trek specking of it, and where they're doing those hoops were just not strong enough, and that it's a higher tension, less spokes, higher tension. That was the whole philosophy behind it. So you have to keep an eye out on it. And this one, my first initial look, it didn't see anything, but they start off very microscopic. Honestly, I mean, I shouldn't tell you this, but I'm riding on a pair and they seem to be holding up okay. But that's me though. If any professional perspective of it, anybody's gonna see that, like, it needs to be replaced. But I'm the kind of guy that's like, well, I'll ride it for a while. I keep an eye on it, so I know what I'm looking at. I would not suggest that for yourself. Thing is, if this had bad wheels, you can find yourself probably a Mavic Opal Pro or a Cerium set from Mavic for like 100, 150 bucks on a used market, and you'll be good to go. So therefore, say you paid 300 for the bike, and that's high. Then you paid another 100 bucks for the wheels. It just puts you at 400 and do a tune-up. That's 200 bucks on that. So you're about 600, 700 bucks into it, and boom, you got yourself one hell of a bike. And the geometry on these are fun because they're a little more aggressive up angle, a little bit longer top tube. A lot of people like that kind of thing for the fit and so forth. So the cool part, is the spine carbon mixed with steel. Definitely a head turner in any kind of group ride that you show up. And they're gonna go, oh, I don't know how many times they're like, hey, nice Le Mans, as somebody's blowing past me on the bike path, that kind of thing. So it is recognized, and it definitely has a coolness factor. So if you're a mountain gravelly person, and you're like, I just want to pick up a cool road bike, just to have some style, this definitely has some style. And Greg LeMond, if you're watching this, definitely some style. Sometimes they pop in and watch a little bit of this on a replay. In any case, we're so 105 Ultegra difference in the brakes, not difference. You'll not know the difference, but this one, the brake pads seem to be pretty, not worn down. The ram surfaces seem to be really good. The tire, that's the original tire. So that tells me right there, like, no, that hasn't been ridden, hardly at all. So, what the individual is saying when he sold the bike to me is like, it's pretty true, because the tire has a little bit of wear, but I would say maybe no more than 500 miles. I mean, come on. And so this is gonna be a great refurbish build. Hopefully the wheel's not too damaged. If not, then I'll be maybe shopping for a wheel. Unfortunately, in the market of today, and we're talking about live, and this is November 2024, the market on used has dropped drastically to the point where my purchasing was back in the COVID time. I would spend up to $800 to $900 on a bike. Dropped in a year or so later to about $500. Last year was about $300. Now it's below $200. I'm not buying anything that's over $200 or $250. It has to be immaculate, and also, so in other words, even though people are listing them, they may get the price once in a while, but majority of the bikes on the used market right now are just going to sit, and the prices are going to go down. Case in point, I picked up two other Le Mans, full carbon, and another spine, which is a frame that's on my website for sale. Both bikes, one bike was $200, the other one was $250, just to throw it out there. So in that case, I mean, you can't really, I mean, you can get that out of the parts. If the frame was bad, I'd be able to sell the parts and still make some money off of it and be able to go buy yourself another bike, that kind of thing, if you want to do that. But therefore, that's what we're looking at. You know, the bike prices have definitely dropped down, and therefore the ones that are refurbished sit longer. So I've been doing a lot more service. Case in point, the bike behind me. That's basically, they wanted a tune-up, but they stripped it down, sent the frame out to be powder coated locally, placed in the Longmont, and came back, and then I put it back together. There's a couple things on that. I'll be featuring that video in the next few weeks, showing a couple of the hang-ups, and when you do get powder coated, and if you're doing the work yourself as a bike shop person, you know you'll have to do some cleaning up of that, of threads and so forth to offset. But when you're looking at something like this, if you're thinking like, oh, I don't really like the color, you can't really easily paint these. I mean, there's a way, but it's going to be a full color on there, that kind of deal. It's a lot of extra prep work. They can't just sandblast it and powder coat it. That's a lot of the steel frames. But when you're looking at aluminum, well, this is steel bottom, but we're looking at carbon. They can't bead blast carbon. So that's a side note on that. So the color is the color on these guys. Oh, that's interesting. The deflector is messing with the housing, which has actually bent the cable bit. Another side note on these guys, and as it's been sitting for a long time, is these shifters. So the shifters, when they're new, it has a little dabble of that fluorescent green Shimano grease. That Shimano grease over time hardens, and I've noticed this with hubs too, so if you need to repack your hub. It's just, yeah, it works great until it gums up those pawls and it doesn't let them engage. So sometimes it'll feel like a dead shifter. This one actually feels like it's working. So if you're doing it at home and don't have an ultrasonic cleaner, one of my community members is chimed in, and they do a lot of kid refurbishing charity bikes, and he found that really hot water, putting underneath that and cycling the shifter really kind of helps just flush that out as a quick and down and dirty way to get it done. In a professional setting, what I do is I put like a carb cleaner or brake cleaner, or you can use white lightning clean streak, which is more specific for bikes. But the carb cleaner is more specific for the pocketbook, a lot cheaper. And definitely make eye gloves, eye protection, don't get the stuff in your skin, and don't puff it. But spray it inside the actual shifter itself, and I'll help loosen up that mechanism of all the grease in there and the dirt, kind of flush it a little bit. Then I put it in an ultrasonic cleaner at temperature of 50 degrees Celsius. With one part simple greens, 6 to 7 parts water, hot, and that really helps really get all that gunk out. And then I flush it out under the shop sink under hot water too. So the hot water trick definitely works. I've noticed on shifters, the ultrasonic cleaner didn't really get it to shift yet, but once I put it through the hot water, then it finally broke free and started shifting again. That is about 95% of the shifters that are sticky. Were able to come back to life. And unfortunately, back in the day, we didn't know. We thought they were done. So we'd tell the customer, you need new shifters. Sorry. But we didn't know, and we didn't know, right? So nowadays with older stuff, I've even gotten that old GT mountain bike, which is listed on my website, also a video in my library, Timberline. Same thing, shifter was gunged up. I was surprised. This is like a 1992 model, and I was able to get that thing come back to life and cleaned it out. Now I was able to expose the whole casing of it too, to show the gearing clickage. It was kind of cool, that kind of thing. Hunter, welcome to the house. This bike kind of reminds me of the 1992 2100. It has carbon, main triangle, oh yeah, and aluminum lugs, rear triangle, and fork. Yeah, what he's referencing, Hunter's referencing, is where Trek started getting into carbon, and that's where they were doing the main tube lugs here, carbon, and the rest of it, or the main tubes, and the lugs were aluminum. And this is kind of, they've been doing that kind of mix up. for a long time. And yeah, those were pretty slick. I do see some of the newer 2100s will be aluminum main triangle and carbon seat stay. And then you'll see even some of the Le Mans in this year vintage and the year before, they had a carbon aluminum or aluminum or steel. Then they'd have a carbon seat stay and a carbon chain stay, which is interesting. And I'll wrap up with a big faux pas, or like the industry doesn't know too much. It wasn't written up. I'll allude to that here in a second. But yeah, the changes of like playing and bonding and gluing things together still happens today. They still have a lot of those things. I'd worked on a rodeo bike, which is a company in Colorado, Denver. Another one of those manufacturers. The frames are manufactured overseas and they put them together here, or whatever the case may be. Companies like that. There's a lot of those small companies there. And they have like a steel or aluminum frame, and like the seat tube is carbon, and oddly enough, the head tube is carbon split in there, which Specialized is doing that back into the 90s, referring to hunters. Like the Trek or the Specialized version they were doing the same tube, and they were copying each other pretty well. So you'll see both models out there, and the head tube on the Specialized was a carbon with a little bit, which was actually copied from Giant. Giant had like their Apex line or something like that back in the day. Oh, that definitely spins me off into the back in time. Woo, 90s. Loosen that brain cell. But I remember back in 89, and when I started with my parents' bike shop, my parents, they started a shop in 87. So I came in about a year and a half later. The reason I was in high school, and we actually lived a little further away. It was kind of hard to work there part-time until I graduated from high school. But in any case, I remember he treated himself opening a bike shop, and in the second year in, maybe third, he bought himself the top of the line, get this, it was a 2500 Trek, aluminum polished chainstay, seat stay, lugs, and carbon mainframe with Dura-Ace. And this is Dura-Ace before they went to STI shifters. So it was Dura-Ace shifter levers on the down tube. And that bad boy was probably around about $2,000. I mean, the retail. So that was like the top end of that period. Now it's, I mean, you could pay as much as you're willing to pay for a bike. But yeah, going back to that lug system. So the lugging and Trek and how they've been, and also Giant and Merida, which is the other major manufacturer in Taiwan, have been lugging and welding and layering carbon for decades now. So even though this might be older, and carbon, there's kind of a misnomer. People think carbon, number one, is dainty, which it isn't. Sometimes the frame gets pretty layered too thin some areas. I'm not saying it's not always the case, but for main tube carbon, it's usually pretty strong stuff. It will take more of an impact before like aluminum would bend, before the carbon would fray. And so there's a lot of, there's a lot of people love carbon. Some people hate carbon. It depends on your camp and where you're going to listen to. But this particular carbon tubing here was, it's pieced and lugged together. This is a little thicker walling than your newer carbon now, where they really thin it out in areas to accommodate, try to make it as light as possible. Lightness was not well, they were trying to make it light, but the lightness was not the concept specifically, the end game. It was pretty light, that matched up with all the current bikes at the time, but they went with steel. They also made a version with titanium bottom. Those are pretty because they are actually nude carbon or nude titanium with the carbon on top. Those are nice. The cheapest one I've seen on the used market is around about 11. Actually, I saw one about 9,000. No, 900. 900. Sorry, 900 to like 1,400, somewhere around there, depending on the componentry and that kind of thing. So. In any case, but yeah, that's what we're looking at for this particular one. I mean, I've been finding some of these that have not been ridden very much, and it'd be a great extra bike in your stable if you're doing that, or if you're getting a bike or starting off into riding. This is something that's, will do you just fine on all that recreational road riding, and even if you want to start racing. novice racing for sure. But in any case, it's a pretty solid bike, and I've ridden on one of these for a little while with the Spine. It's pretty comfy for sure. So allude to the story of Trek Le Mans. We'll wrap up the talking about the bike on that, unless somebody chimes in with another question or any questions specific to this. So Lance Armstrong was 7-time, used stripped medals of Tour de France. Can't knock what he did to the industry at all, because definitely was something. But when Greg was saying something about him doping, which he was doping, and turned out to be for sure, they canned the line because Trek was really embedded in the Le Mans, or the Lance Armstrong, and that was their main line. What they're using was a Lance Armstrong line. It was like the Trek, the 5200 going into the new Madone series and all that. So, and they did the huge switch over, and they were kind of like on eggshells. This is right around 2007. The bubble burst on real estate, and it was a bad couple of years. So all in that at the same time, right? So put it in perspective. And what happens with manufacturing overseas, you put in orders like months to years ahead, and you part everything from other companies like Shimano and all that, and they get it all pre-ordered. And you can't go back on those pre-orders. You just can't. It's done, right? So here's the thing. They had bikes in production with the Le Mans frames and so forth, and you were canning the line. Well, they went away from the Spine already. So they were going to, like, the next model iterations of Le Mans were designed up, ready to go, going to be a little bit fresher designs and so forth. But they couldn't deal with the marketing blow up in their face of basically, attitude got in the way. And this happens with big companies, So they canned the line. They couldn't can the bikes. Guess what? Gary Fisher, I mentioned him before, right? In this conversation, Gary Fisher, the grandfather of mountain biking, along with Breezer and some other individuals, Richie, that cats that did the repack races back in the 70s and all that. Gary Fisher, the guy that looks kind of eccentric. Anyway, they made those Le Mans bikes, Gary Fisher. This is the first time they've made Gary Fisher road bikes, so it's specifically easy to identify right at the bat. So basically they skinned them Gary Fishers for the next 2 years. And then they got rid of the Gary Fisher road bikes, and then they melted the Gary Fisher line into the Trek line, and therefore Gary Fisher is no longer part of Trek. He's out doing his e-bike thing, trying to reboot that under his name, similar to what Mon is doing, what he's doing now. And Fisher, if you're watching this, hey, how's he going? And when you're talking about brands and shell changing and all that good stuff, you'll see a couple of Gary Fishers, and there was a Parcitico gravel bike, or not a gravel bike, it was a cyclocross bike. I think they were black. It looked exactly like my pop rod. I measured one out when I had it, dead on. So even the the welds and everything is all there. So in any case, piece of cake. Thank you for watching from Germany. It's probably a lot later for you. You're probably watching this at dinner time. I hope you're having a good dinner and enjoying the show. So yeah, so this is, a lot of shell, it's nothing new. They'll can a line, switch it, but the production run, and actually I think Giant was building them at the time. And they couldn't, you just can't just make them go away. So they painted them and ran through the contract of those pre-orders, and voila, then you got some Gary Fisher road bikes. And they had some kind of cool ones that I picked up, and knowing that they were basically, they had to been Le Mans. Could be slightly wrong, but nobody's contested me yet. Like, no, that's not the case. And it's not written anywhere. So if you're looking at a 2008, 2009 Gary Fisher road bike or gravel bike, or cross bike at the time, it's pretty much Le Mans geometry, and that was what the Le Mans next iteration was. They didn't make a lot of models, but the ones they couldn't get out underneath, that's what they did. So yeah, Le Mans was making a full carbon bike, which is known to be more steel. There is a couple titaniums. Titaniums are usually built at a different facility because it's a whole different process than welding steel versus titanium. So usually you'll see a white labeling company. Back in the 90s, there was one in, I think, Oregon or Washington that made titanium bikes for a handful of builders. Well, Bontrager was one, Gary Fisher was another, and a couple others, but prior to they went into the truck realm. And even if they were built in the truck realm, the trucks truck facilities were not making the titanium frames. They were actually outsourced out of the white labeling company. All right, Hunter chimed in here. We got, I got my 2100 was a Facebook marketplace with a KHS triathlete from the 80s. Huh, was that a KHS sponsored athlete, I'm assuming? I got both for 50 bucks. Good score. Good score, for sure. Yeah, okay. An older lady that I was assuming was getting rid of her husband's bikes. Yeah, unfortunately, that is sometimes the case. You know, somebody passed away or get out of it, and all of a sudden there's a big pile of bikes that somebody's just unloading. Yeah, those, I mean, I just picked up it's on my website too, the 1420 classic late 80s, early 90s style. I'm staring at it in my rafters up here. To reference, but it had like the Dior componentry kind of thing. Same tubing design, just doesn't have the carbon. They did make a carbon version of the triple, which was the 1420? No, 2120. 2120 is the model, and then they made I think they made two of them. Then they got a little weird, like in 94, 95, and threw some Campy on there. That's unique stuff. I mean, you need to see, oh, thanks for, yeah, it's old man jibber jabbering, what do you remember? Some of my memory is probably a little faded, so correct me if I'm wrong, but I do vividly remember some of these models because I'm building several of them, and honestly, like your 2100 or anything more, a higher number than that we didn't sell a lot of them, so when we built them up, it was kind of like that special order kind of thing. We did a whole bunch of the low-end stuff, of course, because our bike shop, Parker Bikes, was in a small town outside of Denver Metro, and it did have a diverse people that lived out there. It was like mid-range economics, and then you had an area called the Pinery, and the Pinery is where all the pilots from United would live and various others. And then later, a couple years later, that's where the Avalanche hockey team players would migrate to. So you would have like this weird mix. I mean, like normal families just went mid-range, and also the bike lines were kind of catering to the entry-level people, which was great, which is not today by any means. But we would have that's why I remember like the 2100 is like vivid. I mean, I almost can remember the color. I can almost tell you like the cable routing, because we had to put those when we built them. They were in a big box of parts. Not like today when you buy a bike from Canyon, alluding to the conversation coming up. Basically a couple tweaks of put your bars on, put your front wheel on, put some pedals, adjust your seat, and bam, out the door you go within, I don't know, 30 minutes at the best. Back then, it was like a 2.5 hour build. That's when you knew how to build them. I mean, like a seasoned mechanic. I mean, it was not like, the wheels were not that true out of the gate back then. So all those improvements over the last 3 decades have actually enabled them to do direct to customer, that kind of thing. So in any case, that's what we got, for back in the 90s. So let's talk about some topics. I'm going to move over to my bench because I'm standing and talking. Let's do a little switch over here. So if you did get a chance to see my little video this Sunday about REI and Canyon being buddies, in other words, Canyon is kind of a contract. I want to say contract, maybe it is a contract, but is in works with REI to do the service. And this is not new for Canyon. Let's see if my stuff looks right. Oh, no. I'll lower this a little. Okay, you're gonna feel earthquake, 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 earthquake. All right, there we go. Okay, you're still good. See me, hear me okay. Hope all that is good. Give me a thumbs up. All right. Oh, gotta do lighting because I don't have the garage door open. The garage gets kind of dark. So all these things, right? When you're a mechanic doing YouTube, it's just, let me tell you what, it's a whole learning experience in itself, which I don't mind doing. I mean, I don't have a problem with that all whatsoever. I like learning new things. It's kind of fun. Kind of breaks up the monotony of what I do, right? I'm not just working on bikes, being a production mechanic all the time like I used to back in the day. So, bicycle retailer. I still get the paper copy, but you can get online. Hold on here, lost my plug. You can get the digital, carries most of the topics, that kind of thing. But the paper one, they'll have feature articles once in a while that it won't be published on their website, which is kind of, I mean, why wouldn't it? But they don't. But anyway, in any case, that's where I came across a couple articles I featured before. So let's talk about Canyon. If you're a Canyon owner of a bike, you got into the Kool-Aid and realized they're $200-300 cheaper than Trek and Specialized and Giant and Cannondale and Cervelo or whatever you were deciding to buy at the time, either road, mountain, a gravel or whatever. Canyon is a pretty decent big company in Germany. Basically, it's a German company. I do have a customer of mine that I sold a classic Bontrager road bike to. He's in Washington. If he's watching this, how you doing? Hope you're doing great. He's a product manager of Canyon, and he flies out to Germany, whatever. I know a couple other people that moved from the cycling world. One lady that worked for Specialized, she works for Canyon or did work for Canyon for a while. Big company, a big footprint, well known in Europe. There's a lot of, like every company, there's bad press, good press, whatever press. You'll see them on Tour de France. They're a big influence, big push there. So here, let me allude to a little bit of history here before we talk about the merge. So in the video I mentioned, it started in I think the 90s or 80s as a wholesaler company, which basically provide local shops in the European market, change cassettes, tires, all that other stuff. They made their own house brand in the 90s, which was Canyon. And then they blew up to the point now where they're direct consumer, and they were doing that in Europe, and they're huge presence, race bikes, that kind of thing. And I believe they make a lot of them in Europe too. They have a few facilities, but I'm sure they're subcontracted out to like Merida and Giant and everybody else. Well, they had such success, and this is when Trek and Specialized had their basically distributors in Europe. So they had dealers in Europe and Specialized as well. And they knew of Canyon, and they've heard from the dealers and the warehouse people and distributing their stuff out there. The Canyon is up and coming, and they were doing a lot of loss of sales in Europe. And then that came to a big panic, oh crap moment for Canyon, or for Trek actually, because they had a big influence. Specialized does have a big influence in Europe too. But they were going to come to the United States. They were not yet. And mail order was only, to our knowledge, in the United States is from Performance, Nash Bar, Colorado Cyclists. Those companies were the only ones that were shipping bikes to people at the time, which Trek would, and Trek dealers were able to overcome those and didn't really lose too many sales to it. But in any case, when you're talking about that kind of scenario, Trek was very panicky, and they found a way of start buying stores. And when I worked at Retail Toolkit, which is a software program which is now owned by Smart E-Tailing, which is now Kickstand, in any case, one of our first clients managing their inventory was Revolution Cyclery in DC, Washington, DC. DC market is very, very good for cycling because the city sucks to try to get around. And when you get a new administration every 2 to 4 years, those people flip and you get a whole bunch of new customers that want to buy bikes because they can't get to damn work. So through the regular transit or whatever. So therefore, they sell a ton of bikes there. Revolution Cycles was a privately owned bike chain, and the individual that owned it didn't have any didn't have any kids, to take over the company and so forth. He was going to get out. Done. He'd made his money. He's going to retire. And he was almost to the point where he's just going to close it. And Trek's like, oh, you're too big to fail. In other words, you got the footprint, whatever. So Trek bought them. And this is one of their first acquisitions. And this is right when Canyon was about ready to come over into our market. They smelled blood in the water. They realized they can get a lot more profit. And those stores did really well when they did the Switch acquisition. The store I worked at, Cyclery in Fort Collins, Colorado, 3 locations, same thing, acquisitioned. And Trek go in and threw out a whole bunch of stuff, got rid of people. Then they realized they can't throw away people that quickly because they need people. Their processes now is they want to be one of the best places to work as an employee. They've been trying to do that to make up for their faux pas at the beginning. But in any case, so they bought a whole bunch of stores and do that. And then Canyon hit. Oh boy. They hit strong. Then because a lot of people here are seeing them on race circuits and look at the prices. I mean, $200-300, that's $200-300. And if you know how to turn a wrench, because you're thinking about this is upper end bikes, right? And majority of you guys are watching me right now that ride your bikes. You know how to at least put on pedals and maybe adjust your bars and adjust your seat. That's all you really need to know to get this. So it's not like, it's not a far cry for somebody to get this bike and put it together themselves, a few things, and out the door they're riding, and save yourself $200-300. And then you're not going to a bike shop that's trying to upsell you all the stuff that you already have because you were a cyclist and you already bought all that stuff. And in addition to, you're always looking for the end of the season sales to buy your fresh next stuff because you're not going to buy retail for that anymore. It's always going to be on sale. All right, so Canyon, direct-to-consumers, doing really well. The problem was, direct-to-consumers, you don't have any service. This put a really kind of bad attitude in a lot of bike shops that you bought this bike, and this bad attitude goes back not just because of Canyon, it goes back to performance. Because I remember being a little shithead in a bike shop, working with my parents, and somebody would bring in a chain that they bought at Performance, and I'd be pissed. The reason being is you didn't buy it from us. Okay, I'm sorry if it's just that's what it was, and the bike shop culture bred that back in the day. So therefore, you have a lot of people not liking the Canyon bikes because of you can blame Performance all you want. That's fine. No longer around either. Anyway. Even in the shops, even when I started doing the YouTube channel, there's some shops out there who'd be like, we don't work on Canyon at all. You get that damn thing out of my shop. It's like, it's a customer. You're going to tell, we've had this downturn in our market I see it for the cycling culture, a good thing in some aspects because it's actually slapping some of these companies and these bike shops like, look, you got to be nice to people and you got to be in their perspective because you're in the same damn boat when you go and buy something else yourself. You're buying online. Everybody's been buying online. It's okay. You got to respect that, whatever. You don't have to have this attitude. So therefore, combating that attitude, Canyon was using some services in bike shops and partnerships in Europe and done very successful there. And they also did VeloFX, which is a mobile service here in the States, which is nationwide and not everywhere, but a good portion. And then they partnered up with some shops, right? Okay, we'll get back to your tubeless here in a second. Let me finish my thought. So when you're looking at that kind of distinction and negativity, which has been changing in the last year. Let me tell you, a lot of shops have been waking up like, you employees better be nice to everybody that walks in the door or you're not going to have a job. It's just going to be, because we're not going to have a store to sell anything to anybody. In any case, this leading to REI, which is, there's been some comments. I read all the comments that on my video that launched on Sunday, and a lot of it is positive light, because if you own a Canyon, you feel now you can go somewhere and not have those hardship like attitude, long stares, talking under the breath kind of crap. But it's one of those situations where I need to go back to the mom and pop bike shop days where we need to treat every customer like they're the greatest thing in the world when they walk in the door, because they are. And there's still cyclists out there. They're still riding bikes and they're still buying. But guess what? They're not buying their $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 bikes anymore. And they're looking into the used market, and whatever's going to happen, who knows, when the new administration kicks in. There's been a lot of talk about tariffs and how that's going to affect everything. That's everything that's all been said. If anything is just 10% true, it's still going to disrupt the costs on bikes and bike parts and all that. Why? Because all made overseas. So that's everything that's going in. So it's going to increase the prices on it. There's no doubt. And that's going to push a lot of people into the used, and be willing to pay a little bit more for a chain, which is a smaller percentage cost. Well, it's the same percentage, but a less cost effect than buying a whole bike, right? I mean, that just goes to show. So when you're looking at the service center part of that, but it's very interesting that they launched into REI. So I'm kind of regurgitating what I just talked about on Sunday, but give me a minute. So prelude, so if you didn't watch the video, that's why you're getting this now. So the REI saw an opportunity, the partnership with Canyon, because their mix of bikes doesn't really cross over to what they carry. They carry Cannondale and Diamondback and Trek Electra bikes, not Trek bikes, but the Electra brand of the bikes that are owned by Trek. Trek parts, you'll see Bontrager and Trek accessories still yet today in their stores. As well as some other like Salsa from Quality Bike and maybe Surly or something like that. Anyway, they have their own line, and they've had their own line from originally, which was called Navara, which they switched it to Co-op, is their brand, house brand. And they're big enough they have their own house brand. Like Performance back in the day, they had their own house brand called Performance. So nothing new or different there. And then the thing is their bike prices go up to a certain level, then Canyon kind of starts and goes up. So it's not like they're competing against or servicing on that kind of thing. So it's a win-win in that perspective of your current inventory. And the stuff that you sell, like helmets, shoes, gloves, all that stuff that goes with cycling is a mixed bag like regular bike shop. If you go in any REI that has a full service, the bigger ones have the full service department. It's like a small micro bike shop, just like Shields is. Micro bike shop, but all Trek there. But this one in REI is more of a mixed, traditional looking set. And yes, there's some people that have chimed out, they have horrible service and so forth. All depends on your market, who's in that shop. It goes to show, it's the same thing with any chain store. You'll have a couple bad eggs, they'll piss people off. And then you have a couple really good mechanics that love it there because they get a steady paycheck and they like working on bikes and they switch over to skis in the winter. Any case, so it was a great fit for the service portion of it. But I got a couple extra insights on that. So the other extra insights on this is, I went in REI. I went to the locations. So the article stated that they had 28 or 29 locations at REI that just started doing this, or they maybe it's just this. Maybe they just put it on Canyon's website that they were starting to do this, because there's a map locator of these stores from REI and Velofix and everything else. They may have had it on, and they just added the REI to this, because this is not new. According to the staff at REI that I just popped in, and they were one of the locations known to be a authorized service center. Maybe they've officially finally made it authorized recently, But the person I talked to said she's been working there for 5 years and they've always did Canyon warranties. So I'm like, what? Say what and who now? Because I just, wait, what? So there lies the thing that, interesting enough that they maybe already been doing it in selective REIs as just a partnership that nobody knew about, but that, or maybe they did and it just really came to now more up front, up head, or maybe this is REI is going, hey, we need to advertise this because only place we're making any really money right now with bike shops, including me, refurbishing bikes and selling bikes is slowed down to a point where service is definitely where I'm actually paying the bills. Therefore, service would translate in a lot of independent shops I've read and bicycle retailer across the nation, smaller ones as well as bigger ones, as services we're relying on those dollars for service. So putting this out there saying REIs officially has 28 authorized dealers now, official, even though we've been doing it for a while, to kind of promote people to come in and have their service work done. They're hoping and they're banking on, even though they don't sell the bikes there, they'll have the customers come in, and because they bought the bike direct consumer, thinking they don't like going to a local bike shop, possibility, and then they get the warm and fuzzy welcome mat from REI to have your bike serviced there and check for any kind of warranties, is a great lead-in to bring in more service and accessory sales with all the combination of REI, co-op, partnerships, stuff, and so forth. So therefore, good push if they were part of that. If not, it's a great just back-end way of getting some extra service. So alluded the conversation to the REI employee. Well, she was very nice to talk to me, and I appreciate her insights. And it was more of a mechanic to service person conversation. And it's, I mean, I wasn't digging, right? I was just looking. It was like, well, how long have you been doing it? We've been doing it for a while. Like, oh, okay, that was a big one. Another one was an article in Retailers, like, well, or no, that was from GC Performance, was mentioning that maybe they carry some of their proprietary parts. They don't. It's all special order. So if you have a Canyon bike, you come in, you need to get a stem or a bar combo thingy or whatever, they still have to order it from Canyon and then be shipped to the REI location. So they're not carrying any of those specialty parts for resale. So they mentioned they've done several of the warranty claims kind of thing, and then they get the parts and they do the swap and all that. They do get credit from Canyon to doing the service, just the same as you would if you have a warranty for Shimano or yada, yada, yada company. But so therefore you're looking at the lift there, what they're banking on. I mean, they're not making a lot of money on that. Believe me, the warranty credit that you get from any company, Shimano or wherever, you're not making money. It's basically barely paying your employee in the back to do the actual work. That's it. What they're banking on is that customer is hanging around the store at least twice, dropping off and picking up some stuff, tubes, tires, bar tape, whatever. And then advertise, like, get in the system, and then we advertise to you for tune-up services and all that, and all those Black Friday sales that are coming up. And I will talk about Black Friday after I'm done talking about this. But so that was one of the so you're not carrying the parts, and you've been doing this for a while, and they really don't foresee Canyon going into, it's like, we don't have the market, and they mentioned it point blank. It's like, our market, that's not our customer base. I mean, it's you're putting in high-end bikes and it just sits there and collect dust, because they know their current bikes that are high-end or higher in have been collecting dust. So it's like, they're not gonna, no, they're just not gonna do that. It's, I think there was some Sports Authority, no, not Sports Authority, Sports Academy. I think there were in one of the articles about Canyon maybe going in there, maybe, but I'm sure that has cooled its jets since then. But there's been a lot of rumor mills out there. Well, Canyon has she mentioned there's like a crank arm issue that they addressed quite a few of from Canyon. Or looked on Canyon's website for warranties. Been a few random things here, like bars and their suspension and that kind of thing. Other ones like a big battery issue that's going on. But REI is tooled up for it. They have e-bikes, they have all that. All those things are pretty standardized to the most part to work on. Pain in the butt. They're definitely going to lose some money on it for sure. But they're banking on that customer, being a return customer coming in. What a great play, because that customer has probably walked into another shop locally and got the attitude because they have a Canyon bike, which is horrible. I've worked on a couple. I've featured a video that I worked on during my last video, like just kind of taking it apart and doing the tune-up on it. I've done like 2 or 3 of them. Great little bikes. I mean, I can't say anything really negative about them. And all the designs are all the same with Trek and Specialized. So whatever's negative about them is just as negative about Trek and Specialized, or positive. Either way, it goes both ways. So in any case, so the local at the front lines, and they mentioned in the article it's going to be 190 locations for certified or authorized, certified, whatever they want to call it, Canyon service centers. Well, REI has way more stores than 190 stores. Let's just put it that way. And then they have some smaller stores that it's more condensed. I've worked at a sporting goods chain called Big 5 Sporting Goods. They're based out of California. We had over 400 plus 500 stores before I left. That was like almost 10 years ago now. Wow, time flies. And yes, each store footprint was a little different. They tried to cookie cutter it to some level, but if you got a small location, the small locations usually meant is like higher rent and a lot more busy. I mean, the biggest volume stores that I worked in just as a sub or you've been in and knew of and talked to the managers at the Big 5 chain was a small locations, about the size of my damn garage. And they are cranking out hundreds of thousands of dollars of stuff. It's like, wow. So I had a big store. And my store was 15,000 square feet, and it was big. And I got tired walking around it for sure. I put in like 5, 6, 7 miles a day just walking inside the store itself. And we were a lower volume because the rent was cheap. So therefore, when you're looking at REI, the bigger locations, the bigger they are, the more expensive the real estate is. But if they're smaller, it's usually more compact and more busy. So it's one of those things. So not all their stores, long story short, not all their stores are going to have that. Some may not even have a service center on that too. Yeah, it's like one of those things like, Big 5 Sporting Goods is similar to like Sports Authority, kind of like Dick's Sporting Goods, but a lot cheaper in price. Our price points fit where Walmart is to comparison. We had a Sports Authority that would open across the street, which not affects our sales, but if we have a Walmart that opened up 10 miles away, our sales would drop. This is one of those things. And we carried like camping, clothing, all the baseball, soccer, all your kids sports and adult sports, and running shoes was the biggest selling point, or shoes. We sold a ton of shoes, and their buyers would buy the cheaper stuff or closeouts or whatever. So it wouldn't be continuous runs of shoes or clothing. It would be like buyouts from big, like Macy's is dumping their stuff or whatever, and you get stuff for pretty cheap. But in any case, did my stint at a big corporation. So anyway, that's what we're looking at. You're looking at the change of this move, or at least being advertised and released by articles of being a thing. And well, what's Trek and Specialized going to do? What your local bike shops are going to do? Well, I alluded it in the video, like this, for me, as a local small bike shop, just out of my garage, that's all it is. Difference. Everything else is the same. I refurbish and do tune-ups and all that stuff. I had a customer comes in and has a problem with a bike. I could even have the option of like, well, I'll just take your bike down there and check it in and have the warranty frame or whatever thing, cross replacement, done, and I do the rest of the service. You can do that as a small bike shop. But also gives the bike shops quiver of conversation, because nothing's worse than saying, yeah, you bought this bike online and it's broken, and the customer is going to have to contact the company and do the phone call and all that stuff, which I've have done before, which it sucks. I mean, it sucks. It's better for me to be able to like, oh, well, I found this problem, and why don't you take it down to REI, real close, and have them take a look at it and see if they can do the claim for you. And that just like, it's a lot easier for them to process, for anybody to process. And I'm not going to lose a customer off of that if I do it correctly. Any small bike shop's not going to lose a customer off of that because they're going to still like your service, like your style, like your culture. They're going to go there to get the warranty work done. And allude to the conversation I had with the REI employee where she said only ones we've seen is only for warranties. They had a couple customers that have Canyons, have had them for years, but it hasn't really driven in new business per se. It hasn't been flocking in groves of Canyons are coming in just to have tune-ups done. It's only been related to the actual crash replacement or warranty or recall. So that's a higher volume. We're talking about Fort Collins, Colorado, which cycling here is big. It's not small. So it's a pretty decent market and a good testimonial of what they're seeing is probably true for a lot of places. They do have a REI in Denver, which has a bigger population, may have a little bit different experiences of that, but from our micro level up here, a good snapshot, being a cycling community, for sure, that kind of thing. So any case, so you look at the small bike shop, right? Or even a chain that's like been trained to be nicer to people, like, oh, well, the REI is down here, and they'll take care of that part. Well, we can do all the service or put it back together or whatever the case may be, right? I don't think they can lose, and don't need to lose. They don't need to lose any sales there for sure. But it does, really help out, the bike mechanic that has to bear the bad news to the customer for sure. At least you have a direction you go easily, and I can go there. As a mechanic, don't you dare say anything about discrediting the value of the bike that they had to go get warrantied. That is the worst thing you can do for yourself, for your shop, and anything else. Even with a snicker or a sigh or saying something in your breath, be very cute, be very politically correct when you're talking to that customer and not say anything negative like, oh, you shouldn't have bought that online. Don't do that. Don't do that because I've seen that. I've been in a shop hearing employees have done that. And in the situations where I was their supervisor, I had a conversation with them directly because you don't do that. You're messing with the culture. I mean, nobody wants to feel bad about their bike, people. I mean, it's like, okay, it cracked. That could have happened on a Trek. It could have happened on a Specialized. It could have happened in the same batch it was Trek made. I mean, whatever the case may be. So the negativity in bike shops, you will see change because if they don't change, those customers are not going to come in. The little ones that are already coming in are going to be gone. And guess what happens in that shop? They're going to be gone. So customer service from here is my prediction in 2025. You're going to see the most outstanding customer service from sales to service and not pushy, not going to try to sell you anything, try to educate you, try to be the warm hug, try to be like, you're here to see us? Yeah, what you bringing in? Oh, you're looking for some gloves? Let me tell you what I use and that kind of thing. And, well, I found this online. I might be a little better. Need to build that community back up because that's where we're at. We're at a big, hard reset. And that has nothing to do with the manufacturers and what they're, that's a whole new can of worms on their situation. All right, so a couple of insights there. Reading some of the comments, thanks for all of you to putting comments on the video and also watching. It was a little bit bigger number there. And it's great to see, well, the engagement, number one. And this was more of a positive kind of topic versus somebody's going under or what have you. But Canyon is trying to do some imaging and trying to, come on, it's going to be kind of a customer confidence when you now buy a Canyon and the REI down the street is going to address any of those issues that you come across. And they're going to have the cut, yeah, it's like, it's one of those things where they're just going to have a bit more confident sales. All their stuff's on sale. I can guarantee it. They also had, I think they're going to move, or is that another company? There's going to be moving a warehouse. Oh, that was Pawn. They're closing 2 warehouses and Pawn Holdings is a company that owns 50 different companies, bike specific companies from Cervelo, Santa Cruz, Cannondale, Diamondback, as well as Schwinn and Mongoose and GT. And I can't remember all of them. So many, but they also own Audi and Porsche. So big company. They're doing a shift. There's going to be a lot of shifting with these companies trying to build stuff. A lot of the trucks I've been getting bike boxes for to doing shipping from my local truck shop here. It says Cambodia on the boxes, like the bikes are being made in Cambodia. So that's something. I'm an old punk rocker, and there was a band called Dead Kennedys that had a Holiday in Cambodia song, which didn't make Cambodia sound like a very delightful place to go. But in any case, it's probably great now, not to say, and they're probably manufacturing is probably up to snuff for a truck to even considering doing it in Cambodia. But that just shows you where they're going to start pushing different markets to have bikes built because the traditional routes are going to either cost too much or at risk, if you know what I mean. Like, if China invades Taiwan, well, there goes Giant and Maritas builds in that facility for a while. It's going to be a huge disruption. So it's kind of, they're playing the safe game, trying to like making sure, maybe it's just easier to get the, products here. But in any case, that's not first happened. I do have a story about that too. But let me address a couple comments here. It says I would. All right, another butt for chair. I'm thinking I'm gonna fix my own tubeless tire flat. Called the shop. They told me it could easily be over $100. Yeah, if they're talking about replacing the tire itself, but I don't know, the labor on that should be that. If they have to do, the tire, let's say, the tire can get to $100 pretty quick, 50 to 100 for a good tubeless tire. Then you have the sealant, then you add the tape, and you add the valve core on it. If they're including parts with that estimate, it's actually not too bad. Tubeless, just putting in the tubeless and setting up tubeless is 25 to 35 on a regular rate. That's US dollars there. But I would watch some videos, and it's always good to know how to do it yourself. Reason being is, you get a flat, you want to be able to fix it somehow, one way or another, when you're out in the middle of nowhere, especially mountain biking, when you're really in the sticks, extra tube, whatever, whatever. You need to know how to fix those. It's just always good to know, regardless if it's a standard tube or not. So I would implore you to get the materials yourself and try to do it yourself and learn how to do it, because that's the basics of learning, of riding. You're always going to get flats. Period on that. So a good question, a good comment there. Yeah, 100 doesn't have tubeless. That's fine. I don't have tubeless yet. I will at some point, but mostly on my gravel bike, not my road. Let's see, anything that sticks out? Price of cake. I really love working on my bikes. I like riding them. The last shop where I bought 2 bikes from lost me a customer because the owner didn't like the fact that I would service my own bikes. Why would somebody get mad that you serviced your own bikes? That's kind of ridiculous. I don't know. That owner's not going to be their owner for very long if he keeps up that attitude. Because I implore anybody to start working on their bikes. There's a lot of technical tools. I have a little tool show and tell here at the end, but I implore you to at least try. And then if you have this hot mess, just throw it all in a box, take it to your shop, and like, please fix. and maybe help me tell me where I went wrong. And if the mechanics in the shop is good, they'll be like, if they're wanting to build their community, they're going to be more than happy to help you out and show you maybe where you went wrong and that kind of thing. Is why would they have a tool rack to sell you tools if they're not willing to have you work on their own bikes? Just a thought off the top of my head. Anyway, let's see here. I think it was kind of a shop. Smaller owners, yeah, YouTuber shop. Oh, okay, yeah. I mean, I'm a bike shop at first, the YouTuber second, but that's changing. We'll go on to talk about that here in a little bit. Let's stick with tubes. Okay, we're talking about tubeless quite a bit. There's a lot of different flavors out there. Stands, orange, and I've been playing with the Silka version, which has fiber slip. They all have like a latex building to it. Stands though, earlier, not newer ones now, had like ammonia in their mix, which kind of corroded things if it did leak. But other than that, I think they're all probably do about the same. Here's the thing, is you need to learn how to refresh. Did I get stuck? Interesting. Woohoo! Am I frozen? Uh-oh, did I freeze? Sorry. Interesting. Oh boy. Video froze. Audio's good. Okay, well, I guess you're gonna hear me jibber jabber then. Thanks for chiming in and let me know. It's my phone, it's probably the YouTube thing, but in any case. But yeah, when you're looking at definitely with tubeless, it's all good. So in any case, yeah, we're down to a podcast, audio only. Well, at least I'm not doing something like picking my nose weird. Well, actually, that would have been funny. Just me staring off into the screen. That's probably appropriate. In any case, unfortunately, that cuts into my show and tell. I'll have to save that for next week. But when you're looking at shops and they're with their attitudes and that kind of thing, they definitely going to need a change. I mean, that even goes with the corporate level. When you're looking at Trek, they're trying to make Trek a good place for employees to work. Therefore, i.e., that will translate to be happy employees, which will be nicer to customers. So that they have that part of it. Not sure what Specialized is doing. They've been pretty quiet about their things. Of late, although interesting bit about that. So okay, so REI and Canyon, they did a big announcement move or something like that. They're probably going to try to get for promotion videos or something, I'm sure, behind this, or just wait for a whole bunch of YouTubers to talk about it, like myself and PC Performance, or GC Performance, sorry, not PC. But in any case, it's, and I had a comment, it's like, well, that's not new news. It's like, well, apparently this is not new news for like years. Apparently they've been doing it for a while. But in any case, it's going to provide a Canyon cyclist that has a Canyon bike or two, have a place to take it for those issues. That doesn't mean you have to get rid of your local bike shop. If you really like your local bike shop and they take care of you on everything else, that's fine. So you can still go to them. You don't have to have the service work done at REI. They're just banking on it for sure. And going into this channel and myself, I mean, what we're looking at is, for me, shifted to service. Customer service has always been a case for me because that's where I'm trying to fill that void where bike shops have dropped off for the last 5 years. For me, I've been trying to build a customer base, which I do have a very strong local customer base, as well as people across the nation buying bikes from me and various other parts and so forth. So, for me, I did adjustments and started doing some pre-wax chains as a sell, and also a whole bunch of service and advertising and promoting videos of that, which I can tell you, the YouTube has actually helped me provide about half of my service has been driven by YouTube. People like you, so thank you, and it makes you to make this channel. I can't say that even more for that, but it's one of those things where, let's see if I hit pause and go back. Anyway, what we're looking at is it's going to be tough for corporations, and nobody really, has heartstrings for corporations like Trek, Specialized, Giant, all of them. A lot of you have been like, they made their bed, they're lying in it, which is fine. Then you have the mom and pop shops or the bigger chain stores, REI, Dick's Sporting Goods, Shields, what have you. Then you have the next layer of bigger stores, which is like Wheat Ridge Cyclery, and here in Denver. Then there's another family-owned Wheels and Sprocket up in the Chicago and Milwaukee area. Real good family. They have multiple locations, and then you have Bike Mart down in Texas, and also Landry's in Boston area. And good people. They're going to do a lot of stuff. They need help for just people coming in and making sure they're still alive and keep the lights on going through this, because the bike manufacturers have really put us in a huge pinch, as well as the economy has really got bottom on us. So with that being said, it's really difficult for bigger shops to do changes, but they're going to be changing to doing a lot more service if they have not already done it. And that's going to be from e-bike repairs to doing sealants and clinics and all, back to culture. I think that's where, like I alluded to this before, I think this is going to put a lot of shops in a position where you got to go to grassroots. Like, you got to build your culture up again. I mean, you just can't expect somebody to walk in the door to buy a $5,000 bike and that'd be it. You got to build that culture. So you got to do that, you bring in used bikes. And if any bike shop out there is listening to me and you're in the United States, I would really implore you to do similar what I'm doing as in the used bike market. The reason being is, once things get really expensive, or if it does get really weird, and inventory is going to be god-awfully expensive, the used is still going to be less expensive, which it already is. I would do two things. Either do a trade-in program for store credit, and do a trade-in program for store credit with a big event. Do a big marketing push on it. Get as many bikes in as you can as trade-ins. Then do those trade-ins and keep the ones that are your brands that you're selling. So you can put a Trek next to a Trek and have a lower price point for somebody going into it. Yes, you're not going to make a lot of money, but you can at least keep that employee busy fixing the bike up, get a decent margin on it, and also pay your salespeople to push it out. You're basically keeping the lights on when you do something like that. That customer, that's a beginner customer, which is what REI is hoping to do with Canyon people coming in, is sell them stuff that they may need, the consumables, like nutrition, tubes, tires, sealants for your tubeless stuff, everything else in between. That's where you can make your margin, make up for that loss, or not a loss, but less of a margin on those used bikes. You have to have something to sell them. And if you have very expensive stuff left on your floor, you have nothing to sell them. So I really implore you to really look into the used market. And those other brands that you don't specifically carry, you can still do those if you want as your used fleet, or you can sell those on eBay or Marketplace or all that, have a separate company storefront for that to push that other inventory off your sales floor. Therefore, and then again, you can advertise all those used bikes on eBay, which goes to what I found this morning. Interesting enough, listing my own products on eBay and so forth and looking at prices. I was doing some parts listings, and crazy thing is I had a Specialized saddle that I'm going to sell, right? And I looked at the prices and I found the exact same Specialized saddle new from Incycle, which is Specialized. Specialized is now selling inventory on eBay, where for years they would basically threaten to drop your contract with Specialized if you sold Specialized products on eBay. Yeah. So, to allude to another video of what the hell is Specialized doing. Yeah, I mean, they're using Incycle as a dump zone. And I looked at the Incycle, like 30,000 positive reviews off of eBay or whatever they call that. That means they've been doing it for a while under the radar. I just didn't notice it today, so bet on me, but not that that's my job. But anyway, found that because I heard a rumor that they're going to go to Amazon and selling on Amazon, but eBay would be easier flush to go through. Yeah, Specialized eating their words. Specialized has been backtrack. I mean, they're all backtracking to a point. If they can make a buck, they'll sell their mom. I mean, that's where they're at right now. They're at a point where they will give up the farm, sell everything and anything to get through what we're going through now, because we're in a, and they call it, special marketing or something like that. But in any case, I'll play with my phone here, see if he'll, no. Yeah, I'm sorry, you're stuck on the freeze frame. But anyway, I'm sorry, I was just taking a second to play the phone, see if I can get it to kick back up, but it won't. Yeah, let's take a look at some of these comments here. Okay, audio is good, thank you. I'm a newbie to, okay, R. Lewis, I'm a newbie to cycling and really like canyons. I think this is a great idea for new guys like myself. Well, okay, if you're looking for that price point, Lewis, I mean, if you're looking at that $2,000 to $5,000 bike, yeah, it's a good opportunity to do that and also have a support for that, which is great. But honestly, if you're just getting in riding, the used market is actually probably if your price point needs to be less, therefore that individual could get into riding either looking for used, or you can look at bike lines like Poseidon out of California. Decent bikes, I mean, no super thrills. Or even GT has a few that are the lower price points. Or if you even want to go any lower than that, there's a couple companies out there like from Kent International. I mean, I know they send some bikes to Walmart and Target and so forth, but they do carry a couple lines like Van Diesel and some other ones which are pretty decent. They actually ship to direct to consumer too. Actually, I do have one I'm going to be featuring in a video in a few weeks, a brand new one. It was sent to me to do a review. And it's a Gordino, and it's a gravel bike for less than $300. And I mean, obviously I'll be critical on it, but the thing is, you got to respect the price. It's still $300. If it's a decent bike, you can ride and do what you want to do and enjoy riding for $300. Why don't you do it? I mean, come on. I mean, it's one of those things where why would you, do you need to spend $3,000? No. To start off, maybe not. Because there's going to be a lot of other stuff you need to buy. Helmet, clothes, shoes, gloves, car racks, bike tools, all those things are going to add up. So keep that in mind in your budget when you're looking at that. If you have the funds to do much more, that's great. That's awesome. But yeah, good luck on your journey there, Lewis. And check out some of my videos, especially if you're going to be looking for used. I have like top 5 things to look for used bikes when you're looking at them. And always keep in mind, and most likely you'll need to take it to a bike shop to be worked on to make sure it's fine-tuned and more importantly, safe to ride. That's the biggest thing here. Let's see here. More talk about tubeless tires. I'm not a big fan as a mechanic as tubeless, but hey, I just learned to embrace it. I'll take some smacks in the face with the blowing up tires or whatever, but nothing different than doing slime back in the day for sealant for inside the tube. So anyway. Okay, John here bought a frame from InCycles, S-Works Epic. Nice. I know they have everything on sale, pretty much. Their new line's coming out. I walked in there a couple weeks ago, the InCycle specialized corporate store local to me, and he mentioned that everything's going to electronic shifting, their whole new lines are coming out, and everything is on sale. I mean, honestly, anywhere and everywhere, it's a good time to buy. Going into Black Friday here, I want to talk about that. I've been getting bombarded, if everybody else here too, is like Black Friday sales here and there and everywhere. And I'm sorry if you're just joining me, my frame freeze, so I'm going to be just beautiful picture of me staring at my monitor, which is about half the time. Anyway, it's just one of those things. I had a conversation with a colleague in the industry, and he mentioned, it's like, yeah, they have sales already on Black Friday, but is it really the sales or the sales that they have to do right now? Are we going to see even more of a sale on Black Friday as it is? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Everybody's trying to capitalize on it before it actually happens. I mean, it's just everybody's follow suit. I got pretty much an email from every company, from GT to Poseidon to all the other ones I've listed on their mailing list, just to see what they're doing, that kind of thing. And everybody is basically dropping their pants and trying to just sell anything at this point, for myself included. I mean, I had a guy that set up an appointment to look at one of my bikes, and it was a no-show. And it's just like, oh my God, it's so hard. It's hard. It's just hard out there. And it's just tough. And you know, the little micro sales is going to get me through. Don't worry, I'm not going anywhere. And again, YouTube has definitely helped me to help my channel, as well as other bike guys and my gals in this realm. And I wanted to just wanted to do a selfish ploy, not just for me, but other YouTubers that are out there doing their thing. Like the Party Pace guy, the Path, Path. He's a guy that has a channel that's 150,000 subs. And he obviously, I don't think he was in the industry to begin this, but 10 years ago or plus, he was doing some adventure riding with his wife and did a channel on it and all that kind of thing. Yeah, Path Less Pedal. And he had a video. I mean, I've been watching him. He kind of, you know, it inspired me to do what I'm doing today to some level, along with others. And it's one of those things where it comes to the realization, and if you're watching YouTube, and you're watching, you know, free content basically of learning how to work on your bikes and all that, and that's great. I'm not telling you that I'm going to start charging. I don't want that. I want this platform to be free for anybody to watch and what have you. And he had a video talking about negativity, but that doesn't, I don't want to go into that because there's a lot of weirdness on YouTube and any other social media, whatever. That's just part of it. But it comes to me like, I'm just mentioning him as well as other, if you're finding any value of anybody's YouTube channel, including mine, there's going to be value props or ways for us to make money that you don't have to really necessarily spend. For example, I have a Amazon affiliate link, and if you're buying anything from Amazon, if you just go through my link first, like look at some bike repair stands or whatever you venture off on your journey through Amazon and buy like clothing hampers or clothing or toddler tools or whatever, we get that very micro percentage commission off of that as affiliate. And that cookie lasts for like, I think 24 hours or something. That's a way you can support your channels that you like, including mine, through their affiliate link without actually having to buy anything from them or tip them, that kind of thing. Tipping's great, you know, we all appreciate that, but you know, that's for me, that's one affiliate way of making extra income, which does build up over time to help me out to keep this channel. The other ones like the t-shirts and the coffee cups and mugs, for me, I would rather get something out of it. And yeah, you know, I may make like $5 off a t-shirt or something like that. But in any case, why I bring that up, and I'm looking, you know, I'm a bike shop, I'm pulling my hair out, working on bikes, detailing, making videos, all these things. And those two things right there, I don't have to do anything to make an income off of those. In other words, they're set up, you buy the t-shirt, some other company takes care of all that, I make a little commission, in a month and a half, it gets dropped in my account. Same thing with the affiliate links through the Amazon. So for me, as well as other influencers or bike shop people that you watch and they have those links, you know, especially through the Amazon part of it, you know, they'll get a little bit of kick or whatever you buy through that journey, and that helps them out. So that's into my promo portion of that. Enough said, channel's free, I'm gonna keep it that way. But you know, it does make you to make this channel, obviously the ad revenue through YouTube itself is some, of course. But that's how one of many ways. So if you were a bike shop owner, have a shop yourself, doing that kinds of thing, Um, YouTube is a great way, or advertising through other affiliates. Like let's say you have a couple decent sized shops. You don't want to pay for a whole marketing team to make up a YouTube channel and all that kind of thing. What you could do is just advertise on one of our channels that already exist with a whole bunch of people, especially if you ship online or ship inventory. Great way, I mean, to market that. They can just do a 30-second spot, 15-second spot on any of their shows or any of their videos. And they're more than happy to do that. You don't have to like do anything. You just pay them per video or whatever. So there's a lot of different ways for shops to leverage YouTube without actually having a YouTube channel, or they can conjunction it with their own current YouTube channel, that kind of thing. So, all right. Well, I'm still frozen. So what other, you guys are still watching, what other channels? Throw in the chat that you watch. I mean, a lot of you guys watch The Bike Farmer. Watch you do the GC Performance. Some of you guys do the Path Less Paddled. Which other ones that are intriguing, inspiring you to do doing bike riding or enthusiast or details or anything like that? What you got? Nice. Not The Bike Farmer. Oh, yeah, BMX is coming back. I mean, that's one of those, the Bike Sauce. I've seen some of theirs. Peak Torque, yeah, that's an interesting one for sure. JR, the bike guy, I've seen that guy. I just want to make sure I'm not missing somebody out there. It's like, maybe I should, not that I'm going to copy anybody, don't worry. I got my own thing going on, my own rhythm. Just kind of curious what you guys are watching. That kind of thing. Allie Clark, that's the one. There's also like Sid's Knows Bikes. It's a lady that works on bikes, and then they did a Sid and Mac one, which is pretty big. If I said the name wrong, I watched the Second Life Bikes on YouTube as well as Instagram. He's done really good on Instagram. Also, Ben Cycles is another one I see. He's the one that takes the derailleurs down to the springs, cleans them, and polishes it, puts it back together. That's some pretty good stuff. Oz Cycles, I've seen some of their stuff, for sure. Do you guys watch any of which I found very interesting, since I got here for a second. What I found very interesting is like manufacturers have very low YouTube followers. It's mostly the influencers that have the big channels. So for example, like Feedback Sports that does all the bicycle racks, not racks, I'm sorry. They do tools, but they also do repair stands. That's what they're known for. And looked at their channel and it's like not very many subscribers. As well as, even though they promote it quite heavily, Silka is another one that does a lot of promoting, but they're not as huge as you would think they would be. I mean, Park Tool, of course, because they've been doing it for years and they have a great channel. Then a couple other ones. Primal Wear has very low numbers, but they're huge on Instagram. It's like if you have products you're trying to push, it doesn't really do so well on the YouTube platform, except for if you're using the influencers to influence. It's just like something they can't get their head around. Well, they can get their head around it, but guess what? YouTube channels is work. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of time. It's a lot of time commitment. You're not going to get paid back for it. It's just one of those things that you have to do it because you passion or mirror something that you're passionate about, which is me for sure. All right, yeah, I'm getting a lot of good, a lot of subs. The smaller channels, do you guys watch any of the smaller channels out there that are in the cycling world? They're just starting out? That are like under 4,000, 2,000 subs? They're just coming up? Awesome. Foot Locker's dying. Oh, that's interesting. It's like a whole bunch. It's like they're up there as stable as used to be like Blackbuster. Nuts. Gary's projects. I've seen some of his. It's pretty good. unfortunately, I have a business that I'm running as well as a YouTube channel, so I don't get to watch a lot of them. Let's put it that way. I see some of their stuff pop up in my feed, and I click on them, here and there. I watch a few of them, but unfortunately, I don't get to watch anybody like end to end, that kind of thing. But when you look at a couple of the channels that have taken off, I mean, mine is considerably pretty decent, and I'm very happy where I'm at, and I'm I'm just floored how many of you guys and gals have really, really got into watching what I do and restoring and all that kinds of stuff. It's awesome. What's your name? You know the Toasty Rider? No. I don't know if you're referring to my name. I'm Justin. Nice. Yeah, so, yeah, I have a whole bunch of videos that are basically I shot and I'm still going to be editing, going through. And I have at least 2-3 months worth of videos, but I need to stagger them so they're not like bombarding the whole internet and also killing the algorithm. The algorithm is interesting on YouTube as well as all other platforms, but you got to work around that to make it. So I'm going to do a 1, 2, 3 punch, which is topics first for a little bit, just to kind of try to drive the subs up. Then I'll go back to normal programming probably after the seasons. And also, I have a buddy / family member, distant family member, my wife's cousin, wife's cousin. He is very successful in photography, and he's done a lot of editing and all that. And he has coached me quite a bit to get me where I'm at. And he has offered to edit some of my videos and do some thumbnails and titles to help me out. But check out his channel. It's if you like photography, he's a younger, compared to me, I'm in my 50s. He's in his 30s. He's a nomad. I call him a nomad. He lives out of his 4Runner, and he drives all over places and takes beautiful pictures. We have a few prints of his in our house, but he also has some really very cool videos of scenic kind of thing. That's if you're in that kind of thing. But I was going to have him possibly taking some featured videos and make them really super polished. So better to improve, because I'm just a bike shop in the garage. Scott Nelson, thank you so much. I appreciate the super chat. I hope you're getting everything that you'd want and more out of my craziness little garage shop. Doing everything I can to inspire and implore people to either work on their bikes or get into used bikes or just get into cycling altogether. Let's just face it. Cycling is one of those things where it's helped me out through my journey in my life, as well as a lot of people. I featured a few people out there too. But it's one of those amazing things where it's a common thing with a lot of people, and it doesn't have borders. That's what's beautiful about it. Because a lot of you guys may not even be in the States. And what the crazy thing about channels, like I have people down in like Australia, New Zealand chime in, and it just blows my mind. Especially Europe. I'm like, oh wow, okay. And a couple of my biggest followers are in England or what have you. And it's pretty awesome. It's just really awesome. It's one of those things. It's just kind of one of those things. I'm a lot of years doing this and a lot of things and cover. And I've always asked, like, you get enough content or people give me ideas or suggestions? And like, I don't have problems coming up with content. Every day there's like, whatever I work on, there's like 5 different things I can make a video on. There's just needed. Because fortunately or unfortunately, in my perspective, it's fortunately because I can make content for all this, but there's not very much content on 90s bikes, like how to work on them, how to do the bottom brackets, how to true the wheels, how to adjust the hubs, or the weird little nuances from different brands, as well as even early 2000s before YouTube became a thing. I mean, there's some stock video stuff back there, but nothing to the event of where super detailed. So, that's where it's kind of crazy. Like some of those older parts videos, not older videos, but videos that I've worked on older stuff really gets a few hits, and they're evergreens, of course, but somebody's going to come across that funky headset, or crazy Bonner bracket, or why is the cassette threaded on weird? Like those kinds of things. The retro stuff, it's like, I try to, and good for me is like I can find some of that stuff once in a while for like, $20 or $50 and make a video on it. And I figured, well, the video itself will pay for the bike at some point. But anyway, but in any case, but the loose ball cones, Bonner bracket, fixed hubs, all those things are just, it's a adjustment. I mean, adjusting those and working on them, it's just been kind of cool. But I did pick up some retro parts. I'll feature them in my next video, but you actually can see them. But to tease you for next week, there's going to be a frame bender, head tube bender alignment tool, chainstay alignment tool, a fork alignment tool, for steel, not for carbon. No, this is all for steel frames. Not for carbon or aluminum, because you can't cold bend aluminum as much as a lot of people want to, and carbon doesn't go that way. But these are some relic tools. I'm going to feature them, and they're relevant to if you have a steel frame or whatever. But it's some cool things, and I spent way too much money on this used stuff, but I figured it'd be kind of cool to feature them and to show them off. And obviously most of the stuff is not in production today, so you can't just go get, can't go buy them from Park Tools. Some are a knockoff brand I never heard of, or I have heard of, like Hozan, which is Hozan. They made a lot of tools back in the day. Now I have in my hand, you can't see unfortunately, is a chainstay bender, or it pushes either the chainstay out or in, which would be good for those frames steel frame that you need a bend out to accommodate the wider non-7-speed hub. That kind of thing for steel frames, of course. But in any case, I'll feature those. I do have a steel frame I can actually do a show tell on. Not that I'm going to bend it up, but I can at least show you what it does, that kind of thing. So that's what I was going to allude to today. But I'll have to wait till next week since I froze. And again, let's see if there's any other comments that jumps out that I should answer. Any questions? Yeah, the facing and chasing tools, I don't have those just yet. Those damn things are expensive. When my channel gets bigger, and hopefully by next summer, I'll be able to afford the $300 to $400 tool for chasing and threading. Right now, at this point, I do have some buddies at the store that used to be Lee's. They still work at the corporate store, and they're more than happy to chase something for me if I need be. The Klein bottom bracket press fit back in the day. I do see those sometimes on eBay, and they're ridiculously priced. But then again, you'll probably, if you only have one of those, like, what's that headset called? Like, it's like MC something. There's an acronym, like Mission Control. That's what it was. Headset. Those are all kinds of weird back in the day. BB on Clark Kent's. Yeah, those are very interesting. There's so many shop tools that have kind of outdated themselves, or no longer around, or no longer needed. But when you look at a traditional steel frame and so forth, yeah, the head tube bender was really interesting to me, because to bend a head tube in on a bike, on a steel bike, that means you ran into a parked car pretty hard. So that front wheel's rubbing against and the question would be, if you bend it back, would you trust it? I mean, that's where it alludes to I wonder if this is a good thing or not to have this tool. But in any case, yeah, facing tools are always a good one. But there's also some new facing tools for like disc brake mounts, and make sure those are all lined up too, especially the mass-made frames overseas that need to be refaced to fit the current parts. All right. Well, thank you all for hanging out with me in the garage. And I'm sorry, for some reason, my frame freeze. At some point, I'll go over to a different service called StreamYard, I think. It's supposed to make things a little bit better, but right now I don't have the funds to pay into that quite yet. But John Bradley, he's my counterpart of doing topics. He's moving out of state, although we'll be doing live streams together at some point, but he's in the process of moving. That's why you haven't heard him chime in on any of these articles currently, but he will be back at some point soon. Well, thank you. Thank you everybody for chiming in and commenting. I appreciate everything you guys, you make this channel what it is, and I appreciate every one of you. Thank you for spending time. Have a great time out there. If it's nice in your neck of woods, please go for a ride. And I hope you got something out of this conversation. And next time, we'll talk about, I don't know, maybe it's something about Specialized, since their junk is hanging out there in the wind on eBay. We'll take that on maybe. You guys, well, thanks for hanging out with in the garage. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And if it's nice in neck of woods, please go for a ride. I know I'm repeating myself, but it warrants to be repeated. And thank you for making this channel. Till next time, have a wonderful day.